still see it?
Yeah, just move it over a touch. Oh, yeah, there it is. That's good.
Okay. All right, so here we go. Last week's Parsha, of course, finished with the 12 leaders of the tribes who each brought their sacrifice, consecrated the Mishkan from the 1st until the 12th day of Nisan. And this week's Parsha starts with, I didn't copy this part, but it starts with Hashem spoke to Moshe, speak to Aaron and tell him, El mul pnei hamanoira, ya'iru shiva saneris. When you will bring up the lamps, you should face them towards the pnei hamanoira, the face of the menorah. That's how they should shine. And the Torah says, this is how the menorah should be made. Miksha zahav, completely made of gold. Ad yarecha, until its base. Ad pircha, until its flowers. Flowers, yes. Mikshahi, it should be made of one piece. Kamara, like the vision Asher Hera Hashem as Moshe, that Hashem showed Moshe. Cain also as a menorah, so he made the menorah. Rashi explains that, why does it say v'zeh ma'aseh menorah? This is the action of the menorah. What does it mean v'zeh? And this is. Rashi says she'hara HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'etzba, Hashem menorah with his finger. Because he had difficulty with it. That's why it says v'zeh, Hashem pointed to it. Now on the pasuk, on the words, Cain also as a menorah, so he made the menorah. Who is the he that is being discussed here? Who is the he that made the menorah? It doesn't say who made the menorah. So Rashi brings two interpretations. First one is Misha Asa. The one who made the menorah is the one who made it. It doesn't explain the one who made it. It's not relevant. Whoever made it. How did he make it? Like Hashem showed Moshe. That's how he made it. The second interpretation is the Medrash Haggadah. The Medrash says, Al Yidei HaKadosh Baruch Hu nasis me'eleha. It was made by Hashem, so to speak, automatically. So when it says v'zeh ma'aseh hamenorah, miksha zahav ayorech pircha miksha kamara asher hera Hashem as Moshe, like the vision that Hashem showed Moshe. Cain also, so too Hashem made, going back on Hashem, that is in that very verse. Cain also, so Hashem made as a menorah the menorah. Okay, that's a nice explanation. But there's a few questions here. First of all, what's wrong with the first interpretation, which seems to be a fair interpretation, that the Torah is speaking in shorthand. When it says so he made the menorah, it's referring to whoever it is, without explaining. That is a concept that we have come across many times in the Torah. It's called a mikra kotzer, where the Torah speaks in short. If you want to go back to Parshas Vayechi, for example, when Yaakov was sick, and it says, and he told Yosef, saying, behold, your father is sick. It doesn't say who told. And it's understood that somebody told him, whoever it was. It's not important to know the name. It's not always important to know all this information. And the Torah doesn't provide it, and that's fine. So here, Rashi obviously has a problem with that interpretation, which is why he brings the second one, that it was made by Hashem. Now there's another question. If you say it was made by Hashem, why does the Torah have to say Hashem made it the way Hashem showed Moshe? If Hashem is going to make a menorah, obviously he's going to make it the way Hashem wants it to be made. If Moshe is making the menorah, If Bezalel is making the menorah, I understand. It's a chiddush. The menorah is very complicated to make. Out of one lump of gold, everything, all the flowers, all the balls, all the cups, all the branches. Of course, the Torah only mentions the flowers and the base, but it's understood that everything else in between is also made out of the one block of gold. Very difficult thing to do. So we understand that it has to specify and emphasize that the one who made it as Hashem had told him to. But if Hashem is the one making it, well, of course Hashem made it the way he wanted to, because he made it. Okay. Now that we're asking questions on Rashi, let's go back to the previous Rashi where it says that it says, and this because Hashem showed him with the finger, so he had to show him. Now, is the word v'zeh and this really an extra word that we can learn from it that it means he showed him with the finger? V'zeh ma'aseh menorah. This is how the menorah was made. Where do we see an extra word? It can't just say u'ma'aseh menorah and the work of the menorah. It just doesn't flow. So that's the way the Torah speaks. Why is it an extra word that must be interpreted to mean that Hashem showed it to him with his finger? And anyway, if Hashem's anyway going to make it on his own, why did he even have to show it to Moshe? Hashem's making it. Hashem's taking care of it. Just sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Hashem's going to be making a menorah. Try to get a courtside seat so you can experience it firsthand. It's wonderful. But why do you have to get a class in advance to know how the menorah is supposed to look? Hashem will make it the way it's supposed to look. Finished. So, in order to understand these questions, the Rebbe addresses a different question. And that is on a Rashi that I didn't quote here. But Rashi, in the beginning of the Parsha, just a few verses earlier, discusses what is the lighting of the menorah doing here. Because really, we're in the middle of discussing what happened in the Mishkan, at the consecration of the Mishkan. And as far as the specific activities that took place in the Mishkan, the menorah, the shulchan, the mizbeach, the kior, the ketores, all those wonderful things were explained and explained and explained in the Torah portions when they built the Mishkan, Teruma, Tetzaveh, Vayakal, Pekudei, and then gone over in the book of Vayikra. So why all of a sudden are we coming up with lighting the menorah here? How does that fit into what's going on here? So Rashi says, a famous Rashi, that Aaron was left out of the 12 days of celebration upon the consecration of the Mishkan. Meaning to say, all of the tribal leaders got to bring special sacrifices, and the tribe of Levi did not. Well, you could say, well, they didn't have to bring special sacrifices because they were worshiping in the Beis HaMikdash. They were the ones that were sacrificing the Jewish people sacrifices all those 12 days. That's true, but it's not the same when you sacrifice somebody else's sacrifice and you sacrifice your own sacrifice. So they felt a little bit miffed, as they say it. Excuse me. In particular, Aaron, who was the head of the Kohanim, who are the most important family within the Levium family, obviously. And Aaron was feeling down that he was not participating in the Chanukah HaMizbeach, in the consecration of the Mizbeach. So Hashem said to him, Chayecha, I swear by your life, Shelcha gedola mishalehem, your portion is greater than theirs, Sha'ata madlik umeitiv basaneres, because you light and you clean the menorah. So now, so that's what it's doing here, because it's connected to last week's parsha where we had the tribes, and then Aaron felt bad, and then we come right away with this parsha that Hashem told him to light the menorah, and that is better than the sacrifices. Why is lighting the menorah better than the sacrifices? This is not a rhetorical question.
About Hanukkah.
Why?
He showed him about Hanukkah. That even
Ooh,
though
that's a good answer.
prices at some point would be discontinued when when the first and second Beit HaMikdash would be destroyed and there would be no sacrifices. However, lighting the
Excellent.
menorah. What?
Excellent. Excellent. That's actually what the Ramban says. That is very good. The Ramban says, why is the menorah better than the Mizbeach? I mean, they're both artifacts or utensils, if you will, of the Mishkan. And they consecrated one and he's consecrating another. So why is his better? And exactly that's what the Ramban says, that the Mizbeach, as well as everything else, was going to be destroyed, basically. And there was going to be a time that there would be no Mizbeach like there is now. No Ketoras, same thing now. No showbread, although we have lechem Mishnah on Shabbos, but no actual showbread. And Hashem was telling Aaron, you know what? You're going to do the menorah, and the menorah is going to have a remembrance every year on the holiday of Hanukkah. That's good. So the Rebbe explains it a little bit more on a pshat level, on a level of simple understanding. The Rebbe explains that, what are we talking about over here? We're talking about the consecration of the matter, meaning to say the beginning of the mitzvah. The Nesiim, they got to begin the mitzvah. First 12 days, the beginning of the Mishkan, they got to begin it. Sorry. So, in terms of what Aaron was doing, it's not really enough for him to do something that will only be special in the future. Although what the Ramban is saying and what Ezra is quoting is true, that obviously the menorah is forever. But we have to find something also within the consecration aspect of it that makes it more special. Because what he was, so to speak, jealous of was the fact that they consecrated the Mizbeach. So we have to find something special about the consecration of the menorah. So first of all, he did consecrate the menorah, meaning to say he was the first one to light the candles on it. And when you do something for the first time, that is called consecrating it, like bringing it into a state of holiness by using it for a holy activity. That being said, that still doesn't explain why it's greater than the Mizbeach. Why is that not just like equal to the Mizbeach? So you could say, well, the Mizbeach is outside. Excuse me, it's in the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. Open air courtyard, smoke going straight up. Whereas the menorah was inside the Heichal, inside the sanctuary, which is obviously a holier place. And if you're not a Kohen, and even a Kohen can only go in if he has a reason to be there. So that's why Hashem told Moshe, yours is better because you have the menorah. However, the problem with that is that there were other things to do in the Heichal, in the sanctuary, besides the menorah. Every day, twice a day, they brought ketoras. They brought incense, and they burned it on the inner altar, and it smelled wonderful, and that was it. So why not make Aaron feel better with the Ketores? Why specifically the menorah? So here's the Rebbe's explanation. The concept is, my friends, that lighting the menorah is special because the menorah is special. And that's why the Torah discusses this over here. Because, actually, I forgot to put it down on the list of questions that we asked earlier. Another question is that we're going to answer right now, but let's just ask as a question before we answer it. Another question is, if the purpose of this verse is to teach us that Aaron is going to be made to feel better, he has the menorah to light, and he shouldn't feel bad, he's not bringing special sacrifices, that's all fine and good. But why do we have to learn about how the menorah was made? How the menorah was made doesn't belong here. That belongs in the Torah portion about the building of the Mishkan, where it is found in Parshas Teruma and again in Parshas Pikudei. And it says over there already, Hashem made that Moshe Rabbeinu made the menorah like Hashem had commanded him. And why go it over here if the whole purpose is not for that? It's to explain that Aaron has that merit. So why do you have to go over? Oh, by the way, the menorah is made out of one block of gold. It had flowers and a base, and that's how they made it. Whatever. Why is that information relevant? Okay, so now we can try to answer this question, my friends. The answer is it's relevant because Hashem was telling Moshe, so I was telling Aaron, your portion is because you are lighting the menorah. And the menorah has a unique quality that the other parts of the Beis Hamikdash don't have. First of all, the menorah was something that Moshe Rabbeinu experienced in a vision. Like the Rashi says, "V'zeh ma'aseh menorah," this is the way the menorah was made. And Rashi brings something he had already quoted earlier, that Moshe Rabbeinu had difficulty understanding, and then Hashem pointed with the finger to a fiery menorah. Meaning to say, this menorah is special. The fact that Moshe was shown it, so there was like a prophecy about the menorah, that already made it more special than the other kelim. So you'll say, well, maybe the reason he had to be shown it is because it was complicated. And just because it was complicated, he had to show him, but not because it was holier. And the answer is, you're right. The reason he had to show him is because it was complicated. But that very fact, why was it so complicated to build a menorah? Why couldn't Hashem have made it simple? And the answer is because it was a very deep idea. Building the menorah had a lot of deep Kabbalistic stuff in it. Every flower and every cup and every ball and every branch all has meaning to it. And that's why it was so difficult, because it represented a great godly revelation. I think somebody's at the door. Just give me one moment, please. So that's as far as that first Rashi is concerned. Rashi is bringing down that Hashem showed Moshe the menorah in order to emphasize that the menorah, because there was a prophetic vision about it, and that's why Aaron HaKohen would feel better knowing that he's lighting an object that was sanctified by Hashem, so to speak, by being shown prophetically to Moshe. And then Rashi says, Cain also has a menorah, so too he made the menorah without explaining who the he is. Either it's Misha Asa, the one who made it, or it's Al Yidei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Nasas Me'eleh, was made by Hashem automatically. What if these two things are not contradictory? What if we can say that they're both true? It was made by the one who made it, a human being, and it was made by Hashem automatically. See if you can come up with the possibility of how those both can be true. It was made by a human being and was made by Hashem.
So Hashem put it into the mind of the human being to make it this way.
Okay, I hear it. It was difficult, and Hashem gave him the understanding to do it. Yes, I'm with you. So I'm going to say something along those lines, which goes as follows. Elsewhere, it says that Moshe was having trouble to build a menorah, and Hashem said, throw it into the fiery furnace, and out will come the menorah, ready-made, every branch where it was supposed to be, every cup, every bowl, and every flower. So here, when it says, so the one who made the menorah made it, it's referring to the human effort that had to go into making it. Moshe had to learn how it's supposed to look. And really, to learn it properly, he had to be shown the vision of it because he couldn't really understand it on his own. And then he had to prepare it. And then he had to throw it in the fire. And then, miraculously, Hashem helped. And the menorah, as we know it looked like, came out of the fire. Which means that on the one hand, there was an action taken below by the human beings. But on the other hand, it was Hashem who actually finished it. And that's why they're both true. Whoever made it, but Hashem really made it, because whoever made it did his best, and then what he couldn't do, Hashem did the rest. And this is also emphasizing and explaining why what Aaron received, his aspect of the consecration of the Mishkan, was more significant than the aspect of the altar of the Nesiim who sacrificed on the altar, because their sacrifice was to sacrifice on a human-made item, even though it was imbued with holiness, but it was still a human-made item. But Aaron, who lit the menorah, is lighting something that not only did Hashem show Moshe what it is, so it was in a prophetic vision, like we said before, but it was also something that Hashem really made. So when you're lighting that, obviously that's a much bigger zechus, a much bigger merit. Sorry, what's the bottom line lesson that we can learn from this? The lesson is, in Kabbalistic language, we call it Isarusa de la Sata and Isarusa de la Eila, an awakening from above and awakening from below. Pesach, for example, is a holiday that we associate with an awakening from above. The Jewish people in Egypt did not really do anything to deserve that redemption. Those miracles, the plagues, the splitting of the sea, the mun that came afterwards, the well of Miriam, just showering them with miracles. And what did they do to deserve it? I mean, they brought the Korban Pesach, they did a bris milah, but other than that, they were basically descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's it. And the fact that Hashem took them out was a chesed chinam. It was more or less pure kindness on Hashem's part. Nothing that we earned, or nothing that we really earned, barely earned it, maybe. Excuse me. And then, before we could get the Torah, the Jewish people had to schlep themselves out of the 49 levels of impurity, and that they accomplished with the counting of the Omer, getting rid of bad character traits and so on, trying to replace it with good. And that is what we call in a Serusa de la Sata. That's an awakening from below. And the problem with an Asarusa de la Ela, with an awakening from above, is that very often when you get a gift, you don't really appreciate it. And because you don't appreciate it, you don't treat it wisely and carefully and preciously. Of course, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people dream of winning the lottery. And we remind them that so many people who win the lottery end up broke not so many years later, and worse off financially than before they won the lottery, because they end up being in debt. And you tell them that, and they say, "Yeah, I know, but I'm going to win, and I'm going to be different. That's not going to happen to me. I'm going to just spend it very wisely. But of course, after I buy this, that, and the other for myself and my friends, and take a few vacations and a few cars, then I'm going to treat it very wisely." It doesn't work, because the money that comes easily, people don't treat it with the same respect. That's just a fact. I'm not saying there are no exceptions. There are exceptions. There are lottery winners who really keep it a secret from everybody, depending on what state you're in, and they really don't change their lifestyle much, and they try to maintain a simple lifestyle and slowly put the money towards important things and so on and so forth, but never really all at once or whatever. But that's the exception. Most people, they can't handle it. The influx of wealth, the sudden change is too much. And that's like this, Harusa de La'ila, that's when you experience a divine blessing that you didn't really work on. So it doesn't settle into you, so to speak. It's not really where you're holding. It's not really where you're at. So you don't necessarily maintain that level. And then you have the problem with an asusa de lasata, which is when you have an awakening from below. That means you're working on yourself, and you're trying to become holy, and you're trying to become holier. The problem with that is, even though it's more meaningful and it's longer lasting because it's more of an effort, at the same time, we're limited human beings. And our ability to elevate ourselves is limited. We only can accomplish as much as we can accomplish. And that's why the perfect type of service to God is when we blend both of these ways. When we have both an asusa de l'sata and an asusa de l'ela, an awakening from below and from above. That means we do our part to better ourselves, to focus on the right things, to stop doing the wrong things, to get rid of bad traits, all the things we study about in the Torah. And we also have the divine assistance that really elevates us to a level that we couldn't achieve on our own. That's a blessing. The Gemara says, Haba letaher misayin oisoi. A person who wants to purify himself is assisted from above. That means that when you really put in an effort, Hashem does help, that you can accomplish things that you think you could accomplish. It's like sometimes you're working on something, you're working, and you don't think you're getting anywhere. And all of a sudden you get it. Like you just, it clicks and you understand it. Like the scientist who's working on a new theory, whatever, he hits a brick wall, he can't figure it out, and all of a sudden the flash of understanding lights up he gets it. And it's like that also in spiritual service, that sometimes we try and we try and we don't necessarily think we're accomplishing anything. And then Hashem helps. A little story to illustrate this. There was I'm trying to remember the details of the story, but while I think of it, if there's anybody who has any questions or comments, we will take them. No questions?
Yes. Yeah, isn't
Yes.
this also similar to, isn't it like certain things say like the Levine did, say like they just had to put their hand on it and then Hashem miraculously helped with the rest?
Exactly. Exactly. There are other examples when they just had to do their part and Hashem helped with the rest. There's a famous story about Rabbi Hanina ben Doisa. Thanks for reminding me. Rabbi Hanina ben Doisa was a great sage from the time of the Mishnah. Sorry, I'm moving around, but was trying to get comfortable since I had to move out of my main workspace for today. So Rabbi Hanina ben Doisa was a rabbi from the time of the Mishnah. He was very, very righteous, and he wanted to donate something to the Beis Hamikdash, but he really couldn't afford it. But then he found a beautiful stone. It was just beautiful. It was big. It had like I don't know how to describe it, but it was a very beautiful stone. And he thought that it could be incorporated into the Beis Hamikdash, but he didn't know how to transport it there. And the porters that he asked to help him transport were asking for a very high price. And finally, he found some porters, and they agreed to do it for a low price. I think there was 5 of them. And they came to pick it up, and they said, "Put your hand on it." And he put his hand on it, and immediately they were transported to Jerusalem. And when he looked around because he wanted to pay them, they were gone. So they were basically angels that Hashem had sent to assist him in what he was trying to accomplish, which was to donate Gush. And they helped him and they disappeared. But of course, everybody discusses, why did they say put your hand on it? Why was that important? And the answer is Hashem only helps you when you do your part. If you sit back and you say, Hashem, you do it, he's not going to do anything. When you do your part, Rabbi Hanina actually did his part because he found the stone, he was looking for porters. But even so, at the actual time, he had to do his part. It was too heavy for him. Okay, that's fine. Do what you can, and Hashem will help.
If you're still trying to remember, I have some stuff to say.
I think I'm going to share what I do remember, even though I don't remember it all. But then you can share some stuff also. But it was basically a great rabbi who didn't start out so great. He started out as a very simple fellow who was not successful in his studies. And his brothers were very accomplished scholars. And he couldn't, no matter how much he tried, he just couldn't understand his learning. And to the extent that after he was married already, I think it was maybe by one of his Sheva Brachas, when they asked him to lead the benching, and he couldn't lead the benching. He didn't know how to read. Even though he had tried for so many years, he just had, as they say in Yiddish, a verstappte cup. his head just was closed. And the way the story goes is that it was very embarrassing. And he ran out. And he ran to the forest. And he davened to Hashem that Hashem should help him understand Torah. And apparently, I don't even know how we know the story, but I heard it once on a children's tape. Apparently, Hashem sent him an angel of one of the sages of the Mishnah. The sage was named Rabbi Chanina ben Chachinoi, who is mentioned in Pirkei Avos, and maybe one other time in the whole Talmud. And this sage, I don't know why, but this sage is the one who came and taught him Aleph Beis, Chumash, Mishnah, Talmud, to the extent that he became a great Torah scholar, and he wrote books actually. But I'm a little bit fuzzy on the details. But that's the idea that Hashem didn't just give him like a random gift. Okay, you can understand Torah. He really had to want it. He really had to pray for it, and only then did he get it. So he had the awakening from below, and then Hashem, so to speak, filled it in from above. Yes, go ahead, David.
Okay, this is all from Behaaloscha on this pasuk. He says, Zeh Maisa Menorah, this is the work of the menorah. The gematria of the word Zeh is 18, which is an allusion to the height of the menorah, 18 handbreadths. And it says, Kamara, according to the vision. So it says the gematria of this word, 266, is equal to that of Gavriel, like Gavriel. This teaches that it was the angel Gabriel, who showed Moshe the form of the menorah. And the footnote is Menachos 29a. So I went to Menachos 29a, and it says over there that Rabbi Yechiel Bar Abba says, that Rabbi Yochanan says that the angel Gabriel was girded with a type of wide belt, and he showed the precise way to fashion the menorah to Moshe. As it says in this pasuk, this is the work of the menorah. And when the word this indicates that an exact replica was shown to him, and this was shown by Gavriel. And the word Kamara, the gematria, is 266, which is equal to Gavriel, like Gabriel, like Gavriel. And the last thing it says, Cain Asa, so did he make. It says, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, made 70 menorahs, which is, It made 70 lamps. It says, and the footnote says, Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash, and when he did it, he made 10 menorahs in addition to the one that Moshe made for the Mishkan. He placed Moshe's in its proper place and adorned it with 5 replicate menorahs on its right and 5 on its left. As it says in Chronicles, he made 10 golden menorahs according to their specifications, 5 on the right and 5 on the left. And the Talmud records there was a dispute. Okay, so then it says they were the exact replicas of Moshe's menorah, as is implied by the term Kimishpatam, according to their specifications. So this whole idea of Shlomo HaMelech, that he made these menorahs, which is 70 lamps, which is the 10 menorahs and the 70 lamps of each, 7 of each one, which is 70. This is corresponding to these 10 menorahs, which is the corresponding to the gematria of the word Cain, where it says Cain Asa, 10 menorahs. And the gematria of the word Asa is 375, which is equal to that of Shlomo. And therefore, Kain Asa can be understood as Shlomo made 70.
Okay, my head is swimming a little bit from all the gematrias, but I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Rabbi,
Yes.
hi. The
Sorry, you cut off. I can't hear you.
You're muted.
I'm sorry. Did you hear the question?
No, I couldn't hear you at all. Go ahead again. Start again.
Okay. In the original menorah, were the branches straight or curved?
So that's a good question. The answer is that there are different opinions. There's the opinion of Titus's arch, the Arch of Titus, which is that it was curved. And there is another early authority, Jewish authority, that says that. And then there is the opinion of the Rambam, who actually drew a little diagram of what the menorah looked like, and he made it diagonal. So the Lubavitcher Rebbe emphasized that the Rambam's view was to make it diagonal, and he said the fact that the Arch of Titus has it rounded is not a proof. That's not a Jewish source. And the fact that they probably based it on what they saw the Jews carrying into captivity, that's not a proof either, because there were more than one menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, like David just mentioned. King Solomon made many other menorahs, and the second Beis Hamikdash also, presumably, they made many other ones. So the main one was most likely the way the Rambam pictured it, with the diagonal lines. Perhaps the supplemental ones, or at least one of them, was made with the rounded branches, and that's the one that the artist saw when he made that sculpture. So that's why you'll see in the Chabad shuls, or by the Chabad public menorah lightings or whatnot, you'll most often see the diagonal menorahs rather than the kind of half moon menorahs. So that's why.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Actually, it's forbidden to make a menorah that looks exactly like the menorah of the Beis Hamikdash. So to make it with diagonal, because that's where the made of the Beis Hamikdash, is actually problematic. The reason that we're allowed to do it is because we don't make it the same way as the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. It's very different. Who knows how?
Ours are not beaten from one piece of metal.
That's true.
And also ours have 8 branches instead of 7.
Exactly. Ours have 8 branches, or if you have one for the Shamas, 9, but theirs only had 7. That's correct. So that's another important difference.
And how could you use it for the Hanukkah lights?
So the ones in the Beis Hamikdash were not used for the Hanukkah lights. They were used for the daily menorah lighting, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. And the Hanukkah lights are to commemorate that rather than vice versa. But still, we don't light the menorah of 7 like they had in the Beis Hamikdash. We do 8 because we want to follow the idea of adding 1 every night. So we start with 1 and we go up to 8, rather than the way they did in the Mishkan was 7 all the time. 7 in the evening. Some say 7 in the morning. Some say in the morning they just cleaned it. They didn't light it. There's different opinions. Some say 2 in the morning only. But in any case, when they lit it at night, it was always 7. We go up from 1 to 8 but not specifically 7.
And the story about enough oil to last 8 nights, that's just a bubba matzah?
No, no, God forbid. That's the story of Hanukkah. That's why we light the Hanukkah menorah to remember that story. But again, the point is that we commemorate that by lighting the menorah, but we still don't use an exact menorah like they did in the Mishka in the Beis Hamikdash at that time. In any case, you're not allowed to even make a menorah that's exactly the same. So rather than trying to copy it, we just do a light or several lights to remember it. But yeah, but we still do light it just as it's getting dark, which is the same time more or less when they used to light at the Beis Hamikdash. So it's still commemorative of that lighting.
If it was such a strong provision how to make it, who actually came up with this idea of adding more branches? Or is it even, allowed for a Hanukkah?
Well, the original mitzvah actually did not specify that you have to have a menorah. Like originally, you could take one candle on one candlestick first night, put a little candlestick next to it the second night, and another candlestick next to it, and at the end you'll have 8 candlesticks, and they won't even be connected. You won't even have a menorah. The original enactment of the Hanukkah menorah did not include a menorah, just had light. The idea of having a menorah seems to have been a later custom, which we do keep, and it is commemorative, somewhat at least, of the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, but it's not a main focus of the Hanukkah, mitzvah. The main focus is the light and not the menorah that holds the light, so to speak.
Isn't it possible that sacrificing is not as important as lighting the menorah because it has to do with light, not just any other products, not any other, subjects that are sacrificed?
It's hard for us to make those decisions and say what's more important, what's less important. They're both mitzvahs and they're both important. It so happens, like Ezra quoted earlier, that we get to do the menorah even nowadays, at least in a commemorative form on Hanukkah, whereas we don't really do sacrifices at all nowadays. So the fact that kind of God arranged for us to have a continuation of the menorah mitzvah and not of the sacrificial mitzvah might mean something, that there's something special about the menorah. That's true. But other than that, I'm not gonna be the one to decide, which mitzvah is more important. Hashem knows.
Is it because Jewish people supposed to bring lights to every place, and that's a reminding of doing
Yes,
it?
absolutely. Um that's why the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash was arranged in such a way that, sorry, the windows of the Beis Hamikdash were designed so that they were spreading light to the outside, like the part that was narrower was in the inside, and they got wider on the way outside, symbolically showing that the Jews are spreading light to the world. So the menorah definitely had to do with that. Also, that we're spreading light to the world symbolically by lighting it. Yes.
Is it true that it's a good kind of situation to put menorah in your window if you light it on Friday? I mean, just to open it to not only your own household, but to make it as
Are
an
you talking
example.
about on Hanukkah or on a regular
No,
Friday night?
just a regular, just a Friday, a Shabbat
No,
menorah. No.
no. A regular Friday night is not about the menorah. The
Mm-hmm.
regular Friday night is about honoring the Shabbos. It's for you to honor the Shabbos.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also about peace in the home. It's for
Okay.
your home. The menorah and the window is for Hanukkah.
The
It's a
Hanukkah
spread of
only.
miracle.
Okay.
A
Yeah,
spread of
it's
miracle.
good to know. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Have a good day and a good Shabbos, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Rabbi.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Rabbi.
you. All the best.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.